Right before the wedding, I caught my fiancée cheating, and here's what I did. Let me start from the beginning. I was perched on the rickety old couch in the cramped living room I shared with my fiancée, Lena. Sunlight from the late afternoon sneaked through the grimy blinds, spotlighting little specks of dust twirling around like they were putting on a show. The vibe in the room felt heavy, a weird shift from how things were even just a week back. Lena was stomping back and forth behind the coffee table, her arms locked tight across her chest. "Look, I need something bigger in my life," she blurted out, her voice shaky with this odd, desperate edge I wasn't used to hearing. "It's been eating at me for months now. I'm done faking it," she went on. I glanced up at her, my fingers tapping a nervous beat on my knee. "So, you're telling me you want other people in our mix?" I asked, half expecting her to laugh off the crazy idea. "You really think that's gonna make us tighter?" I pressed. She rubbed her temple like she was fighting off a migraine. "Yeah, I do," Lena shot back. "I get it sounds wild, but we're so close to tying the knot. We've only ever been with each other, and I'm freaking out about being boxed in, or like I've skipped out on something big," she admitted. "I just need to stretch my wings a bit." I stared at her so long the dust in the air seemed to freeze mid-dance. "And you expect me to just sign off on that?" I said. "Do you even hear how nuts that sounds? 2 weeks before our wedding, and you're pitching sleeping with other dudes. I'm not talking cheap hookups in sketchy motels," she snapped, her tone sharpening with irritation. "People live like this, open relationships, polyamory, whatever you call it. It's legit. It keeps couples from drowning in jealousy or bitterness, or it dumps a whole truckload of it right on us," I cut in, a sour smirk tugging at my mouth. "Let's keep it real here." Her eyes tightened into slits. Lena's always had this stubborn streak, maybe even a touch of cockiness. "So you won't even think about it?" she fired back. "Don't I get any say in what I want our marriage to look like?" I choked down a hot wave of anger. "When you say open, you mean freedom for you, but not for me, huh?" I said. "That's what you hinted at last night, you can chase random flings, but I'm supposed to stay all loyal and pure." She tilted her head up, her thick black hair spilling back in one smooth flick. "It's not the same for women," she argued. "If you start messing around, you might decide it's a fresh start and ditch me for some new chick. But me? It's just a little adventure, I'm still all in for us. I love you, Jake. I just need more than this. Are you listening to yourself?" I groaned, scrubbing my hands over my temples. "You're basically saying you can step out whenever you want, no fallout, and I'm supposed to stand there grinning like some clueless dope?" "It's not like that," she pushed back, but her voice wobbled a bit. "It's about me feeling free. You've always said I've got this bold confidence, that I shouldn't bury who I am. This is me, Jake. I need a life that doesn't drag me down. So marrying me drags you down?" I shot back with a sharp, bitter chuckle. She planted her hands on her hips. "Is it so bad to want it all? A solid husband by my side and still some thrills for myself?" "A ton of folks would say yeah, it's messed up," I replied, my voice going flat. "But I guess those same people would tell me I shouldn't bother marrying you then." Her eyes flared like a spark hitting dry grass. "What's that supposed to mean?" I bolted up, almost kicking the coffee table out of my way. "I'm saying if we're even tossing around open relationship talk right now, maybe we shouldn't be racing to the altar. You can't just cancel the wedding." Lena barked, jumping in front of me to block the door. "My folks have dropped thousands, yours too. My mom will lose it if I tank this, and yours," I let out a dark laugh. "So that's what it boils down to. You're more worried about your parents flipping out than what's happening with us." She poked me hard in the chest with her finger. "That's not fair, man. I'm laying it all out here, being real with you. Isn't that what you've always wanted? Didn't you say you'd take the raw truth over some sugar-coated lie?" "I didn't know your raw truth," was that you can't stick to one guy, I fired back. But fine, let's roll with it. Let's see if I can stomach you hooking up with your boss, some coworker, or random bar dudes while I sit home playing the perfect saint. Maybe that's who you want me to be, some spineless pushover. Maybe that's why you went for me. She shot me a look that could have melted steel, but she didn't deny it. Instead, she shoved past me toward the window. The argument fizzled out, leaving this buzzing tension hanging in the air like static on a busted radio. The next few days turned into this weird game of dodging each other. She kept buzzing around with wedding plans, locking in vendors and payments, while I faked a smile and nodded, a storm churning inside me. Every time I caught her eye, there was this strange, distant vibe on her face, like she was cocky in a way I didn't recognize, making me wonder if she was hiding more than just wild ideas about opening things up. Then one night, she rolled in late, mumbling some half-baked excuse about overtime at work. I clocked the top 2 buttons of her blouse undone. Her cheeks had this weird flush, her hair all mussed up, not just from a long day. Right then, this ugly hunch sprouted in my head. I figured I'd poke at it a little. "Hey, Lena," I said, keeping it chill, "how about we hit that East Side cafe you love for some dessert tonight?" She flinched, like I'd caught her off guard. "I'm wiped out," she muttered, tossing her purse on the side table. "Sorry, I just need a shower and my bed." I gave her a slow nod, plastering on a fake grin. "Sure thing." She bolted to the bathroom, and soon I heard the shower kick on. I made a beeline for her purse, digging through it until I found this slick business card. Ethan Caldwell, Regional Director, Everest Technologies. On the back, in her handwriting, a number and, "had a great time." My heart started pounding like a jackhammer. So she's not just talking big, I mumbled to myself. She's already out there doing it. I slid the card back where it was, stepped away, my ears ringing and anger boiling behind my eyes. I could see it, her and this Ethan guy, sneaking around after hours. For a split second, I wanted to storm in there and demand the truth, but I held off. I was starting to feel like I was losing my damn mind. Still, if she was really messing around with her boss, or whoever this Ethan was, I needed more than a hunch. That title sounded pretty high up, but I wasn't sure. I wanted solid proof. So over the next few days, I started watching closer. She'd come home doused in fancy perfume she never wore around me. She'd duck out for phone calls. One night, she even dropped his name casual-like. "Ethan's so sharp," she said, smirking. "He's showing me all these new tricks in sales and marketing. I feel like my career's about to take off." That smug look on her face twisted my gut. I got hooked on the idea of nailing her in the act. If she was so gung-ho about an open deal, why sneak around? Did she think I was too dumb to catch on? That stung worse than the cheating itself. Nights bled into days of me stewing, barely sleeping. Then, out of nowhere, luck handed me a shot. I was in our tiny kitchen, rooting around for a beer or something, when her phone started buzzing from the living room. She'd left it on the couch. I wandered over, wondering who'd call this late. The screen lit up, "Ethan." It went quiet, then buzzed again, same name. I pressed it to my ear, not saying a word. The line sounded muffled, like this Ethan dude didn't even know I'd picked up. I froze when I heard Ethan's voice come through the phone, all low and cocky. "Lena, I'm still buzzed from earlier, you know, how you said you're over that fiancée crap. Man, it's a rush." He chuckled. "I wanna see you tomorrow, my place this time." My face went cold, like the blood just drained right out of me. I couldn't even make a sound, glued to the spot by his smug confession. Then he stopped, probably wondering why it was dead quiet. "Lena? You there? Hello?" My shaky hand killed the call, and I chucked her phone back on the couch just as she strolled in from the bedroom, rocking sweatpants and a baggy tee, looking a little spooked. "Who was that?" she asked, clocking the phone in my grip. The second she saw my face, her eyes popped wide. "Jake, did you pick up my phone?" "You bet I did," I growled, heat creeping up my neck. "Your pal Ethan called, he's got some guts, huh?" Her face went white, mouth flapping like a fish out of water, no words coming out. Finally, she stammered, "I can clear this up. Ethan's my boss." "Well, close enough. He's a hotshot at the company." "Yeah, helping you sneak around on me," I shot back with a bitter laugh. "Now I see why you're pushing this open relationship crap, you're already knee-deep in it." She reached for my arm, but I jerked back fast. "It's not what you're thinking," she said, her voice getting all panicky. "Okay, I brought up the open thing, 'cause I'm into him, but it wasn't supposed to go down like this, just a possibility we'd chew over." "What a pile of bull," I snapped. "You're already hooking up with him, that's not open, Lena, that's straight up cheating." Her face twisted, anger flaring up. "Don't you dare act all high and mighty. I laid out how I felt, and you just blew me off, treated my wants like they're nuts. You're the one who's always stuck your sanitation plant gig ahead of me, telling me to wait it out." She jabbed a finger at me. "Well, Ethan sees what I'm worth. He's not cool with me rotting away as some dull housewife who never chases what sets her soul on fire." I clenched my jaw so hard my teeth ached. "So you're chasing your fire with him?" "Yeah," she hissed, crossing her arms tight. "And now I see I shouldn't have even bothered cluing you in. We could have tied the knot, and I'd have done my thing quietly, everybody wins." I stood there, letting her icy words sink in, feeling them cut deep. "You know what?" I said, voice low and steady. "You and Ethan are perfect for each other." She glared daggers. "I don't deserve some guy too wrapped up in his own pride to get me. I wanted a life with some juice, not this boring grind where I'm always waiting for you to bring the spark." I sucked in a hard breath, fighting the urge to yell until my lungs gave out. Instead, I spun around, snagged my jacket off the rack, and said, "We're through." My voice was tight as a wire. "Wedding's off. Don't sweat my folks' deposit, I'll deal with it. You can tell yours why there's no big day." I shoved past her, not even glancing back as she stood there, stunned, in the living room. Stepping into the chilly night air, my chest was pounding with this mix of pain and rage. Right then, I knew breaking it off wasn't enough, I wanted to hit back. Lena's cocky attitude stuck in my head all night, keeping sleep miles away. I kept seeing Ethan's smug mug, his slick suits, that fancy black SUV of his I'd spotted in pics on her phone once, a shiny beast with tinted windows and custom leather inside. Imagining her in that ride, laughing at his dumb jokes, turned my stomach into a pit of poison. By the time dawn rolled around, I was hunched over my phone, digging through property records for Ethan's address. I tried talking myself down, "This is nuts, man, let it go, move on," but it didn't stick. The more I stewed on Lena's arrogance, the more I needed to strike back. I wasn't just some meek little fiancée she could toss aside after stomping all over me. When I left the apartment, I had Ethan Caldwell's spot locked in my brain, a swanky new complex up in the ritzy part of town, all gated up with security carts cruising around. My gig at the sanitation company gave me keys to some heavy-duty rigs, the kind that suck waste out of septic tanks or porta-potties. I'd driven them plenty. "The stink's brutal, but you either get over it or figure out how to weaponize it," I muttered to myself, forcing a twisted grin. Over the next couple days, I pieced things together on the down low, kept tabs on Lena's routine from afar, noting when she'd pull late nights. I found out online that Ethan was hosting some out-of-town business hotshot for dinner Friday, so he'd likely be gone for hours. I mapped it out like a battle plan, no half-assed moves. I wanted something so nasty, so mortifying, that Ethan and Lena would gag at the sound of my name forever. Thursday night, Lena burst in past 9, first time she'd seen me in days. I was in the living room, stuffing clothes into a duffel, boxes stacked by the door, clearly bailing out. "Jake," she said, softening her tone like she was trying to play nice. "We gotta talk." I barely flicked my eyes her way. "We've talked enough," I said, zipping the bag shut. "I've got my own stuff lined up now." She sauntered closer, arms crossed. "My folks are pissed you killed the wedding, they're saying you owe them for all the cash they shelled out. I think you should pitch in, it's not right I'm stuck with it solo. You want me to cough up for a wedding you torched?" I gave her a hard, cold stare. "That's rich." She rolled her eyes like I was being dramatic. "Quit acting like the wounded hero. You wouldn't bend an inch. If you'd just heard me out, we might have figured something out, some setup that kept us both smiling." I wheeled on her, throat tight with fury. "You think I'd sign up for a deal where you're banging your boss and trashing me as gutless behind my back? If that's your happy place, take it and run." Her cheeks went red, and she tucked a strand of hair back, flustered. "I never said you were gutless." "Might as well have," I fired back. "You figure I'll just step aside while you do whatever the hell you want?" She let out a sharp breath, frustration spilling out. "You know what? I'm done reasoning with you. You've always been so small-time, so fine with your waist-pumping life. Maybe that's all you ever wanted, but I need more, and Ethan gets that." I took 2 steps toward her, anger rolling off me so thick she flinched back, though her face stayed stubborn. "Have fun with your fancy boss, Lena," I said, voice low and cutting. "Don't come crawling back when this whole thing crashes and burns," I warned her. She let out this sharp, mocking laugh. "It's not gonna crash, Ethan's 100 times the guy you'll ever be." "Yeah, sure," I muttered under my breath. "You two were made for each other." She didn't even dignify that with a reply, just spun around and stomped out, leaving me trembling with this boiling rage. I shut my eyes, sucking in a slow breath, letting the nasty mix of heartbreak and fury sink deep into my bones. I'm done taking this crap, I thought. Time to hit back. Friday night rolled in, and I'd snagged a sanitation truck loaded with the nastiest haul you could dream up, thick, slimy sewage from a busted septic tank behind some greasy spoon joint with endless plumbing woes. The stink was so bad I had to keep the windows cracked while I drove, but I didn't care. This is just what I need, I told myself. Dirty payback for their dirty games. I cruised through the city under the night sky, streetlights casting a dull glow on the truck's grimy tank. It was pushing 10 p.m. when I pulled up to that fancy gated neighborhood. The guard at the entrance barely gave me a second look, probably figured I was there for some late-night maintenance gig he didn't know about. I mumbled something about an emergency leak at one of the houses, and he just waved me through, no questions asked. Ethan's big, flashy mansion sat at the end of this curvy driveway, all trimmed hedges and fancy lanterns lining the way. The place screamed money, huge modern front with giant windows showing off a spotless inside of marble and glass. And there, parked right in the driveway, was his pride and joy, that slick black SUV, gleaming like it had just been waxed, the overhead light sliding off its curves. I clenched my jaw hard. I could still hear Lena raving about its cushy seats and killer sound system. Let's see how cushy it feels after this. I hopped out of the truck and unraveled this thick, heavy hose hooked up to the sewage tank. The smell hit like a punch, choking, brutal. I yanked a scarf over my nose and mouth, then snuck around to the SUV's side. Flipping a switch on the truck, I turned the usual suction into a full-on blast mode, and a low rumble kicked through the hose. "Here we go," I growled under my breath. I pointed that nozzle at the back of the car and let it rip. A disgusting, chunky flood of sewage shot out, slamming into the shiny paint with a wet smack. Stinking globs and runny sludge oozed down the side, twisting into nasty patterns. The splatter was so loud in that quiet, snooty street, I jumped a little. In seconds, that perfect ride was buried under a thick, gag-worthy coat of crap. I edged along the SUV, a twisted grin creeping up as every gush of filth fueled this dark, messed up victory. Part of me was screaming that this was nuts, that I was way past any line a sane guy should cross, but I couldn't stop. This wild, electric buzz was pumping through me. I swung the hose around, blasting the tires, the windshield, the roof, sewage dripping everywhere, pooling in rancid swirls on the driveway. Ethan's precious toy was a total abomination now. But I wasn't done yet. I wanted him to walk into a house just as trashed. I marched up to the front door and jiggled the knob, locked, no surprise there, but those massive windows were calling my name. I grabbed the crowbar I'd stashed in the truck and headed to a side pane. Wedging it near the frame, I shoved and twisted until the wood splintered and glass shattered with a sharp crack. I cleared out enough shards to shove the hose through, the stink from it nearly knocked me back. Reaching in, I aimed it to spray across his fancy living room floor, then cranked the valve again. A sick, sloppy cascade of sewage blasted inside, soaking the walls, the furniture, that shiny marble tile. "This is what you get," I hissed, my voice shaky with this savage, almost giddy rush. "This is what you get for thinking you can grind me into the dirt." Then headlights flashed across the driveway behind me. I stiffened, letting the hose slip from my hands. A sleek dark coupe rolled up, parking by the curb. The driver's door flew open, and out stepped Ethan, decked in some pricey suit, his eyes bugging out when he clocked the sewage truck and the foul stream pouring into his living room. He let out this choked, horrified yelp, his face pure shock. "What the hell?" he shouted, slapping a hand over his nose as the stench slammed into him. "No, stop it." I stepped toward him, crowbar gripped tight. He clocked me and froze, his eyes bouncing around in a frantic mess. "You," he stammered. "What are you doing? Are you out of your freaking mind?" I let loose this harsh, bitter laugh. "Me, crazy? You screwed around with my fiancée, my almost wife, and you've got the nerve to ask if I'm crazy?" Ethan stumbled back, banging into his car. "It was, Lena said you guys had some deal going. You can't do this, man." "Oh, guess what?" I said, closing the gap. "There was no deal." She lied through her teeth. "You both did. Now you're gonna choke on the mess you made." He lunged for the truck, probably trying to shut off the valve and stop the flood. I was quicker, swung the crowbar and blocked him, metal clanging against the truck with a shower of sparks. "Back off!" I roared. "Or I'll crack your skull open." Ethan staggered back, his face twisting with rage and terror. "You're unhinged. I'm calling the cops." I jabbed the crowbar his way. "Do it. Then I'll spill everything, how you seduced my fiancée, maybe messed with her at work. Bet your big shot board would eat that up. Your family, your buddies, think they'd love the headlines." His eyes flickered, doubt creeping in. "This isn't just a headline. You trashed my stuff, broke into my house. Look at this." We both glanced at the window. The sludge kept pouring, swamping the marble floors, tipping over lamps and rugs in a stinking tide. The smell and the wreckage were unreal. Right then, another car screeched around the corner, headlights blazing. Lena's sedan. She slammed on the brakes, door flying open. She jumped out, tight skirt, heels, hair all wild like she'd been somewhere swanky. "Oh my God," she gasped, gagging on the smell. "Jake, what the hell did you do?" I turned to her, adrenaline roaring through me like a freight train. "You wanted some thrills, huh?" I said, my voice shaking like a leaf in a storm. "This exciting enough for you, Lena?" She gawked at that black SUV, now drowning in oozing sewage, her face all twisted up in horror. "You're off your rocker," she whispered, edging closer like she was stepping on glass. "This isn't what I had in mind." "Doesn't matter what you pictured," I snarled back. You spit in my face, made me look like a chump while you were sneaking around with him. You fed me that open relationship line, but you were already in his bed. Did you really think I'd just sit there and eat it? Her expression hardened, indignation flaring up. You've got no business pulling this crap. Ethan's gonna drag you through court and take every dime you've got. I wouldn't bet on that, Ethan barked, shooting her a glare that could cut steel. You told me your fiancé was some spineless nobody. Now he's threatening to rat me out to the board. Do you even get what you've dragged me into? She spun on him, fuming. Oh, so this is my fault now. You're the one who couldn't keep it out of the office, pushing me to ditch Jake. Don't you dare flip this on me. I let out this sharp, mocking laugh. Ah, look at you two, already tearing into each other, cute. Let me sweeten the pot. I stepped over to the truck and cranked the valve wide open, unleashing a thicker, nastier wave of sewage through Ethan's busted window. He charged at me, clawing for my arm. Cut it out, you psycho. We slammed into each other with a heavy thud, the crowbar slipping from my hand and clanging onto the driveway. He shoved me hard, but the slimy ground threw him off balance. He nearly face-planted into the stinking puddle by the curb. I yanked free and smashed my elbow into his ribs, sending him staggering back with a pained grunt. Lena shrieked, Jake, stop it, please. She bolted for the truck but froze there, useless, staring at the reeking chaos like it was some alien machine. She fumbled with the controls, but they were way over her head, no chance she'd stop the flood. Ethan was panting now, choking on fury and the stench. That's it, he yelled, yanking his phone out. I'm calling the cops right now. I took a hard step his way. Go for it, I said, but don't forget, I've got Lena on tape, bragging about your little romps. Won't look pretty for you at the top when they hear how you lean on your title to mess with the ladies under you. How many times you played that card, Ethan? Think HR's gonna shrug if this blows up big? He eased the phone down a notch, his face a war zone of rage and panic. You wouldn't have the guts. Oh, I've got plenty, I shot back. You kicked this off. I'm just closing the show. Lena stood there, hands mashed over her nose, staring at us both. You're both sick, she said, her voice wobbling. I never should have opened my mouth, should have kept it all to myself. Shut it, I snapped, my eyes burning with venom. You want to talk about what should have been? How about you rubbing your fling in my face like I wouldn't notice? Or thinking I was some pushover you could walk all over? Well, surprise, you screwed up that bet. I circled the truck and tugged the lever, slowly dialing back the flow. This has run its course, I muttered. The driveway was a swamp of putrid sludge now, and the broken window kept leaking sewage inside, slower but steady. The house was a war zone, and that stink. It'd hang around for weeks, maybe months. Ethan coughed, eyes watering from the fumes and his own boiling anger. I'll see you behind bars, he growled. I'll dodge your little blackmail stunt somehow. Give it a shot, I said with a shrug. I'll make sure your board gets the full scoop, your side gigs, Lena's play-by-play of your meetings, plus call logs and texts. Good luck spinning that while your fancy house festers under a sewage blanket. Lena glared at Ethan. This is on you, she hissed. If you hadn't pushed so hard, me, he fired back. You're the one moaning about your limp fiancé. Don't dump this on my lap. I let out a cold, empty chuckle. Told you two you're a match made in heaven. I headed for the truck's passenger side, ready to climb in. Have fun scrubbing this disaster. Ethan lunged again, like he could stop me, but I locked eyes with Lena, fierce and steady. Tell him to back off, or it gets uglier, I said low. She grabbed his arm in a panic. Don't, he's not kidding. Ethan shook with bottled-up rage but stayed put. I hopped into the driver's seat, slammed the door, and peeled out of the driveway in reverse. In the rearview, I caught Lena and Ethan standing there in the swirling filth, hands over their mouths, faces warped with shock and disgust. That shiny SUV was caked in a thick sewage crust, and the living room kept taking on more through that wide-open window. I floored it, the truck rumbling down the quiet suburban street. My chest was thumping hard, part triumph, part revulsion, all adrenaline fire. The stink stuck to me like glue, but right then, I didn't give a damn. I'd unleashed something filthy and wild, all for payback. I stashed the truck behind the depot where I'd nabbed it, almost an hour since I'd left Ethan's place. Stepping out, I ripped off my gloves and wiped a smear of rancid muck off my cheek with my sleeve. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I glanced at it, Lena. Ignored it. It buzzed again, and I checked the texts, too curious to resist. "You bastard," she typed. "You trashed his house, his car, I can't believe you'd go this low. My folks are gonna hunt you down for every penny of that wedding if you don't fix this. You hearing me?" I let out a rough, raspy laugh and powered the phone off. "Fix this?" I mumbled. The idea was almost funny after the chaos I'd unleashed. There was no fixing it, just a nasty tale left to haunt Ethan and Lena's dreams for a long, long time. My brain started drifting to what might come next. Lena's folks could haul me into court, screaming about money. Ethan might try to weasel out of this with some slick story. But I had the goods, phone logs, texts, maybe even Lena's own big mouth running off about their fling, enough to shut them both up. If Ethan dared to point the finger at me, I'd hit back twice as hard, no hesitation. I stared at my dead phone for a second, feeling this heavy, worn-out emptiness creeping in. I shuffled away from the depot, hands jammed deep in my jacket pockets. There was no thrill in what I'd pulled off, just this weird, hollow quiet settling over me. Way back in my head, Lena's smug attitude tangled up with Ethan's pissed-off threats, echoing around. Let's see who's dumb enough to mess with me now, I thought, a dark edge creeping into that idea. Then, softer, another voice piped up, "What the hell have you turned into?" I didn't have a clue how to answer that. All I knew was they'd humiliated me, and in one god-awful night, I'd made damn sure they got a taste of that shame times 10. No, sorry, no do-overs. The night air felt crisp against my face, and the city's far-off buzz didn't give a damn about the chaos I'd just dumped in that ritzy neighborhood. Life kept chugging along, couldn't care less about the sewage piles, busted glass, and smashed-up dreams I'd left in my wake. I got to my beat-up pickup parked near the depot. Climbing in, I caught a glimpse of myself in the rearview, eyes still blazing with leftover rage, face streaked with filth. I barely recognized the guy staring back. "So this is what payback looks like," I grumbled. "Ain't exactly a beauty pageant." I fired up the engine and peeled out into the night, ditching the last scraps of my old life, the cancelled wedding, the fiancée who'd pushed for an open deal, all those rosy ideas about a future that was never gonna happen. I was free now, or at least that's what I kept telling myself. Free, and stinking of the rotten revenge I'd dished out. I shot one last look in the mirror, then stomped the gas, letting the city lights swallow me whole.